Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
This is Sunbelt Commissioner Keith Gill, and I listen to the Funbelt Podcast.
If you didn't know before, now you know why they call this the Funbelt.
I'm very excited about the Sunbelt.
You know, while other conferences have been breaking up, our conference has become stronger.
The state of Sunbelt football is the strongest in our history.
I saw Funbelt Conference, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I got to join the show. This sounds a lot of fun.
Welcome back for a Turkey Day celebration of Funbelt Podcast here on the Believe Network. Joining me are the original Pilgrims, Dusty Thibodeau from the Warhawk Report. Hello, Dusty.
We're here to eat more and gobble up Shane incognito. He's hidden away in a secret bunker after releasing the wrath on JMU.
Shane is the John Smith of the group, going out into the woods and just coming out with controversial bits of information. Shane Metlin from the Daily News Record. Shane, how are you?
I think you just covered it. I'm doing fine.
Shane has been on his horse, covering the latest with JMU and its fight with the NCAA, and its apparent surrender, Shane. Shane, can you give us a brief update as to what's going on so that our audience may be better educated?
Okay. How brief this can be, we'll see.
So
basically, the state of Virginia had set a deadline for the NCAA to decide to let JMU be bowl eligible. If they hadn't done it by Friday at noon, they were going to sue. Friday at noon came, nobody sued.
Ooh.
The attorney general calls me and the local TV reporter up, said, "Hey, come talk to me on campus before Saturday's game." Like, okay, we go talk to him. He says, "Hey, there's a little bit of delay, but we're just making sure we get this right. Stay tuned for Monday." Okay. Monday comes and goes, and nobody sues. And it turns out that somebody, presumably the president of JMU, got cold feet. Not to pursue it. And that's where we are, trying to figure out why somebody would think this was the right move on Thursday, but not the right move on Monday has been tough to figure out because the president of JMU doesn't do a lot of interviews.
To his defense, did he specify which Monday?
It could be any Monday.
It's true.
The last of the major pro sports league kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season. With MLB, postseason, NFL, and college football, and NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport, anytime. Head to your BetOnline today to get on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Who knows? I have my finger is not anywhere near the pulse of the situation, but I imagine, you think, okay, it's time to go to war with the NCAA. It's kind of like Tony Montana trying to say, all right, we're going to go to war with old Escobar or whoever he ended up going to war with in Scarface. And you're like, man, this is going to be costly. There's going to be a lot of casualties. Do you think that's what it was? It was like, listen, I'm going to burn too many bridges if I go to war with the NCAA?
I think maybe on a personal level, that might have been the case. In the end, the NCAA is the university presidents. It's just basically like a gigantic board of 300. Well, more than that, because it's all divisions. It's just like a gigantic club of NCAA presidents. And I think it's safe to assume maybe he didn't want to rock the boat there too much, got cold feet. I just don't understand I think it's reasonable to say, hey, this lawsuit wasn't a good idea. Like this is not the direction to go. That would have been reasonable to say, but that would have been reasonable to say 2 weeks ago, a month ago, whenever this started going down this road, not when you've got it to the point where all the lawyer in Richmond had to do was push a button and the lawsuit was filed. Everything else was done. We were talking about clicking one button on the computer and it was in the courts.
I think Shane's satellite communication from his secret back cave has gone down there. But I agree with him. I mean, it's one of these. If you're threatening it, Jeremy, you got to stick to your guns. You got to pull the trigger, right, wrong, or indifferent. You threatened it, you got to do it, right? I mean, it's kind of like when you have your kids, right? You say, "Hey, you do this, this is going to happen," and if you don't follow through, quite truthfully, bad things or even worse things happen later on because they don't believe that you actually have the kuyons to pull the trigger.
Well, we've seen in society as of late that threatening lawsuits and saying you're going to go take people to court has been sort of a way of life, especially on social media, when you can just say, "Yeah, we're going to take you to court," and then somehow it doesn't happen, or something changes behind the scenes. And maybe I think one of Shane's points was, it was fine to talk about legal action, but to wait this long in the game and string your fans along and string this whole drama along, and then at the final minute not coming out and saying why we're not doing this, it's a little, it's not shady. It's just not good for the fans. You can't rile up fans and then just like, nah, we're not going to do it. So I don't blame Shane for trying to get that interview with the president, because you do need answers. The fans need answers. Everyone needs answers. James Madison, is it public or private?
I think it's a public.
Okay. Maybe we can. Shane, he's just back on. Hey, Shane.
Hey.
JMU, public or private?
Public.
Okay. So the people of the state and the people that are within who are linked into the organization, they have a right to know, have a little transparency. And that's how it is at Arkansas State. Now, they haven't always been good with that. They'll hide things or not comment on things. But in the last few years, they've really tried to make things work. But enough about JMU, because we're doing this jam-packed Funbelt podcast, this Thanksgiving edition podcast. We're going to try. We can't make it succinct. We can't boil it down. But we can be as brief as we can, right, Dusty? I mean, it's like Thanksgiving dinner. You sit down and you eat it all up, and then you have to unbutton your pants and sit in front of the TV for a while, right? That's what this podcast is going to be like.
Very much so. And here's our first quick hit that we have.
Okay.
Georgia State goes to Baton Rouge, gets the 56-14 loss. I don't think we're surprised by that. I was surprised, though, that it was Georgia State kind of hanging tough there in the first half before, I guess, the depth or whatever just kind of kicked in. I was impressed in the first half, like I said, with the Panthers. LSU, a team that is definitely pissed that they're not in any contentions. But we still had Marcus Carroll running, didn't hit the 100-yard mark, only 87 yards and 1 touchdown. Darren Granger, 1 touchdown on 179 yards passing. More importantly, we did see someone else attempt to throw a pass as Michael Colosaro. I butchered it. Sorry, Brady. 3 or 4, 34 yards. Maybe the future's bright for the Panthers.
Yeah, we keep talking about the disintegration of the Panthers. I think they've lost 4 straight now. And you kind of wonder what happened. First team in the Sun Belt to reach official bowl eligibility. We know JMU was first to get to 6 wins, but Georgia State was first to get that official bowl eligibility, and since then has just been unable to close escrow on another win. And you wonder if they're just exhausted. Are they played out? You just don't really understand. Now, going up against LSU, that's not really a fair test. And yeah, they looked good that first quarter and a half or so, and then things sort of fell apart. But yeah, actually, Dusty, it's not a very good out of conference slate last week for the Sun Belt. Maybe we should dive into that a little bit too.
Yeah, I mean, another game that was impressive in spurts. Mississippi State, Southern Miss. Southern Miss definitely gave them a fight in the first half. You never pick against a team that just fired their head coach. And so Mississippi State able to tally 382 yards of total offense. Southern Miss struggled with just 246. Frank Gore with a incomplete pass and 66 yards rushing. Definitely not a great Frank Gore type of game. But what did we really expect coming out of this game? I mean, did we think that Southern Miss, with all their struggles, that this was going to be the game where they finally put it together, as opposed to an emotional Mississippi State team just fired their head coach? They're looking ahead to the Egg Bowl and trying to make sure that they get that game to ruin Ole Miss's season. Did I leave anything out on that game?
No, the one thing though that I did expect Southern Miss to play a good game, simply because Will Hall's trying to salvage a season that was very disappointing, trying to get his reputation back. They were hot. Southern Miss came in pretty hot. I think they won 2 straight before getting into that game. It's an in-state rivalry that probably matters more to Southern Miss than it does to Mississippi State. So, I wasn't surprised when the score was close. Now, Mississippi State, I think, scored 18 points in the fourth quarter to seal that game, and the final score did not look anything like the close game that it actually was. But yeah, that was probably, of all the Sun Belt versus SEC that we had last week in the Sun Belt, that was really the only game that was worth really paying attention to, right?
Yeah, I think so. And of course, the Warhawks went to the Grove to play Ole Miss 35-3. They did cover.
Yeah.
But it was an ugly game, even by Ole Miss standards. Sure, they racked up almost 5 yards of total offense, but they did not look good at all. And it was 7-3 at the half. And then, as we've seen in the past, where ULM, that defense just on the field too much because of the consistent 3-and-outs there of the offense, just really unable to get anything done in the second half as they wore down. Ole Miss able to score 28 points in the second half, 21 in the third. Jackson Dart, 24 of 31 for 310, 3 touchdowns. It was not a good Warhawk showing, but it sets up that they now get to play spoiler this upcoming week against the in-state rival Louisiana Lafayette. We'll talk about that game a little bit more, but that closes out the non-conference SEC portion. We did have one other non-conference game as Coastal Carolina went to upstate New York, fell 21-28 to the Black Knights of Army. Did you get a chance to watch any of that, Jeremy or Shane?
I didn't get to see it. I saw that Jarrett Guest was brought back out of the emergency tent, the injury reserve, and took the place of Vasco and came out, and I think he threw for 3 touchdowns. But no, I didn't get to see the game. I don't know where the disconnect happened. I do know that the Knights were hot.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty evident there that Army time of possession just about 40 minutes of the game, Coastal Carolina 20. When they never give up the ball, it's kind of hard to, unless you're making those quick stops, it's kind of hard to play catch up when you don't know if and when you're going to get the ball back offensively. In the Sun Belt Conference action, we had a shutout. South Alabama actually showed out 28-0 over Marshall. Marshall, I think, is done. Yes, I believe that they have hit the 6-win mark. I don't think that they're going to get another one. Rashida Lee held to 55 yards rushing on 16 attempts. Cole Pennington, 3 picks, 159 yards. But South Alabama was hot, man. Carter Bradley, 2 touchdowns. LaDamian Webb, 117 yards and 1 touchdown there. Colin Lacey, 9 catches, 126. This is the South Alabama team we've expected to see all season long, and they're just now showing up.
Yeah, that's it. One correction. Marshall has not hit the 6-win mark. In fact,
they should have. They should have.
They should have, yeah. Especially after starting the season 4-0. You would think that would have happened. But no, they're still fighting for that last win. But I don't know if I don't think they're going to get it. I got a note from Craig Stevenson after the game that just said, "By the way, Marshall's just bad." So yeah, that really sums it up. And we should, South Alabama should sort of be congratulating themselves for pulling themselves out of the rubble of this season. I saw that defense firsthand when they played Arkansas State, and that defense is just fast. They move really quick. They're probably the fastest defense that I've seen Arkansas State play. And I've seen some pretty fast defenses played against Arkansas State. So they've got all the tangibles, Dusty and Shane, to have a winning season. I don't know why they're only 6-5. And Marshall is pretty much just kind of ready to go home, I think.
Yeah, I can confirm that Marshall does have 6 losses because everyone in Harrisonburg is watching that closely. They're rooting for the Red Wolves and the Warhawks next week. So this week. So yeah,
the game that I thought was going to it turned out to be a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. Troy 31, Raging Cajuns 24. I think the one difference here was really that Troy defense, 5 sacks, accounting for a loss of 33 yards. Because Chandler Fields, 282 passing, 3 touchdowns, did throw the 1 interception. The run game also was not really going, as Jacob Caboti held to just 23 yards. Thoughts on this game, as Troy really showed that it's that defense as to why they're so good?
Well, one, just looking back at the Cajuns, that run game has really kind of suffered in the last few weeks. I mean, that's what they were known for. And for some reason, they've been held to under 100 games for a couple games now, and you kind of wonder what's going on there. I know Fields is kind of a different kind of guy, likes to sit in the pocket and pass. I mean, he's just a really good passer, so maybe that's part of it. But, yeah, Troy, Troy is just kind of one of those teams that sometimes, kind of relaxes a little bit, and then they get into some trouble. And which surprises me because John Summerall just doesn't seem like that kind of guy. But maybe he's not been able to put his intense culture as much. But yeah, just another win for Troy. It's just going to be smooth sailing until the Sun Belt Championship.
Yeah, I agree. Troy's just kind of one of those teams that you expect to win close games. You expect them to play close games, and you expect them to win close games. And that's basically what they've done over the past 2 years. So not necessarily a huge surprise to me. We've talked about, the Cajuns kind of emerging here in the second half of the season, even with all the quarterback shuffling. So that one went maybe about how I expected it to.
I feel like the afternoon games got weird. and it started off Old Dominion. I have no idea how they won this game. Yes, I know last second field goal, they got it 20-17 at Georgia Southern. But if you look at this game on paper, you look at the box score and looking even at the highlights, there's no way Old Dominion wins this game. They gained the Eagles by 4 yards, did not have the ball as much on time of possessions. They had way fewer tackles for loss, so it wasn't necessarily the defense, but somehow averaged 5.5 yards a play, giving them just enough to get the win and get to 5 wins.
Yeah, and here we are, last game of the season, and the Monarchs could be bowling, and this is after everybody agreed. I mean, we all agreed, right? Tibbs, wasn't I there for this? We all agreed. In the preseason, ODU was going to be the worst team in the Sun Belt. And here they are. The weirdest team in the Sun Belt for sure. Just like you said, nobody knows how they win games. They just somehow managed to do it. They could very easily win their game next week. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But yeah, ODU and Ricky Ronnie, man, those guys should be the proudest of anybody in the Sun Belt. Really picked for dead. Kind of a dead man walking to enter the season. And here they are just making big wins.
Yeah, I don't think Ricky Ronnie will probably get a ton of love when it comes to Coach of the Year talk, but I mean, maybe he should be at least in that conversation. I mean, it's hard to argue against, John Summerall or Kurt Signetti or, even Sean Clark turning things around in their season. But like you said, we did not have any expectations for ODU, and they're doing this kind of despite us being right about what their weaknesses were. Like, it's not necessarily that like, oh, like, well, they shocked us by actually having an all conference quarterback or something. And, they're figuring out how to do this and win some games despite having a lot of holes in that roster.
The weirdness continued. And of course, the college game day premier game of the week.
Oh,
App State wins in overtime 26-23, but at the halftime, 10-5. How weird was this game, Shane, as you watched it in person? And also tell us about that game day experience and how many pictures did you take with Herb Schreck and Pat McAfee?
I didn't get any pictures with those guys, actually. Didn't even get to talk to McAfee. He was not like one of the guys who was like super available, which is fine. But we'll start with the game first. Like you said, 10-5 at halftime. It just kind of felt like the game hadn't started yet. It was weird. It was definitely weird. It was a weird JMU performance. I mean, maybe to be expected with all the other stuff happening. You just had things that hadn't happened all year. They missed a field goal, which ended up really costing them. The past 2 weeks, Jordan McLeod was basically putting the ball wherever he wanted to and doing it under pressure. And on Saturday, like, he just was overthrowing guys left and right. He was not making the same kinds of decisions. One of App State's scoring drives came on a series where Jamie Cromah, one of the best defensive ends, maybe in the country, certainly in the Sun Belt, he gets called for face mask twice on the same drive and gets them in the field goal territory. It was just a lot of things that the mistakes that they hadn't made all season long all kind of happened in the first half. And then they came alive in the fourth quarter to send it to overtime. And, they let it be in a position where one play where it gets into the end zone by a couple inches is the difference in the game. And, maybe it didn't have to be that way for the Dukes.
No, and then all credit you have to give to Appalachian State. Appalachian State was my preseason pick to win the Sun Belt East. And after they lost to Old Dominion, it was like, okay, well, I guess Appalachian State's just not going to be a factor at all in this race. But now they've won 4 straight. They're in a tie for first place with Coastal. They very well could win the East after all. Well, that depends on James Madison. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, good for Sean Clark, who looked like he was on the hottest seat in the Sun Belt, suddenly riding cool on the cusp of a Sun Belt East divisional championship.
Yeah, and we talk about, I just went through all the things that happened to JMU. Sorry, and, we can't neglect that App State went through all that stuff earlier in the season. The Wyoming loss, everything else. They've been through it all already. They're a couple of plays away from, we're talking about them having this awesome season with a win over North Carolina and a win at Wyoming. And what would we be saying about App State right now if they, hadn't had some weird things happen in those games?
Sure. We would be, talking about them being in the top 25.
It was that win that ULM that propelled them, by the way.
The
weirdness continued on in good old Fun Belt fashion on Saturday. I thought this was errors when I was seeing it. Arkansas State 77, Texas State 31. Straight ass whooping, and I don't even think it was really that close of a game.
No, in fact, at the end, it was, a lot of third stringers out in defense for Arkansas State and Texas State. Here's the thing. Texas State, I came away very impressed with TJ Finley and Ishmael Mahdi. They're both they're both gamers. I mean, and Finley ended up throwing for over 300 yards. But they kind of just ran into a bad time to play Arkansas State. Arkansas State really had everything clicking. Texas State opened that game with with their first possession with a touchdown, and it looked like, okay, this is going to be a grinder. And for about a quarter, it was close, and then all of a sudden, Arkansas State just started pounding with the run game. They had nothing to stop that. And then in the second half, Arkansas State's offense didn't get the ball for 17 minutes. 17 minutes they didn't get the ball, but they outscored Texas State 28-7 in that time. They threw two pick sixes, and Arkansas State ended up with a kickoff return for a touchdown too in that time. So it was really bizarre game to watch. So my apologies to the Boobcats for coming into Jonesboro at that time and place. It just wasn't the right time and place for you.
Are we sure that game didn't take place on a PlayStation? Because that's sort of what it sounds like.
It was kind of wacky.
Yeah, perhaps Arkansas State comes out and scores 70 again this week. But if not, I really wish that had been the regular season finale, so we could have had the bookends of that Oklahoma game.
Right.
Versus
the season losing 73-0. You would end the season 77-31. That would have been okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arkansas State bowl eligible. Everybody's excited in Jonesboro. Hats off to Butch Jones for patiently not listening to his critics and just kind of moving the team where he wanted to move it, and now they're looking good.
Jeremy, will you go to the Arkansas State postseason game?
The bowl game?
Yes.
Yeah. Me and my brother Rex Steele and my father are already making plans. So I'll be there. Wherever it is, even if it's maybe not the Potato Bowl. I don't know if I want to go all the way to Boise, but we'll see.
Why do you hate Idaho so much?
It's just a long way. It's cold. It's in December.
I bet Shane and his Dukes would happily go to Idaho for the Potato Bowl, Jeremy.
Well, sure.
There's a lot of less fortunate teams out there, Jeremy.
Just a big league experience for James Madison. I would gladly give him that experience. Well, every small school like James Madison should get that opportunity.
So do we want to talk the finale of Sun Belt Conference action this upcoming weekend, or do we want to talk a little basketball?
Was Arkansas State, Texas State? Was that our last game to talk about?
That was it for last week.
Yeah, wow. Well, one thing about basketball, Shane, I will say this, and I expect you to give us an answer on this. Why is everybody but JMU just sort of tanking?
App State. They absolutely crushed a pretty good UCW team. That was one of the first big non-MU wins for the Sun Belt. One that gave me a little hope that there are going to be some competitive teams in the league.
Yeah, and they also just recorded a victory against Murray State, which is always kind of a nice thing to have. So maybe Appalachian State's helping out. Meanwhile, Georgia Southern 0-6, Dusty Thibodeau. What is going on with the Eagles basketball?
New head coach, new roster, same results.
Yeah.
I thought last year that it was kind of a mistake to move on in the coaching ranks for them, but they did. And now you got to kind of that rebuild process, getting your roster right, getting the new system in place, and getting everything up to speed and ready to go for the season. I think once Sun Belt Conference action starts here in about a month, I think that they'll be okay. But I just have the feeling that it's going to be a kind of uphill battle to that point to get them up and going, ready to go. So before we jump into the finale, we had not the Super Bowl this past weekend, but the Grey Cup in the CFL.
Yeah.
The Montreal Alouettes hoisted the cup with 5 former Sun Belt Conference players on that team. ULM's quarterback, Caleb Evans.
Ooh.
Troy receiver, Chandler Worthy. Cordell Rogers of Texas State. Louisiana Lafayette kicker, Reese Burns. In Georgia State, Chris Moore, all getting the hardware north of the border in the CFL.
Nice. Sunbelt rules, Canada.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have seen it as much as some of the games you've been to, but I've noticed some CFL scouts coming out to some Sunbelt games and liking a lot of guys. Like, some guys maybe are very good college players but aren't NFL sized. So it's a good place for some of these Sunbelt guys to end up.
Yep.
I learned a lot about the CFL back in the day because the general manager for the Edmonton was actually from Monroe. So he was at a lot of ULM games. And so it's a different breed than the NFL, though, that you can only have so many, as they call them, import players. That is people that didn't go to college or are not from Canada playing in the league. In addition to that, they have a pretty strict salary cap, where the salary cap is not only what's on the field and what the fans see, but also the front office is included in the salary cap as well.
Wow.
So you might have the best GM and no product on the field, and the best product on the field and a GM that has no clue what he's doing because he's making the absolute league minimum.
Yeah, you just put an intern in charge of GMing, and then you put all the money into talent, right?
I guess that would work. I mean, Edmonton was pretty successful back in the day, so, the guy definitely knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
So as we turn our attention to the finale, the last regular season week, I want to say, of Sunbelt Conference action, it all kicks off 11 a.m. Central. Troy headed to Hattiesburg to face Southern Miss.
Whoa. You didn't say it.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't say. You got to say the words. You got to summon the
goon. Just because it's the last season doesn't mean the gong isn't done too, and he's ready to call it a season as well.
No, the gong is just warming up. The gong is happy for week 3.
Week 3?
I'm sorry. Week 13. Maybe I'm done. Say the words, Tibbs.
All right. Jeremy.
Yep.
Would you like to play second and short?
The gong! Yes!
Kicking off the final weekend, Troy travels to Hattiesburg to face the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Eagles playing for pride. Troy just really trying to get that next win and allow them to possibly make themselves even more attractive to the echelon of bowl games that they could be eligible for. And in addition to that, trying to stay healthy and trying to focus on getting the Troy Trojans ready for the Sunbelt Conference championship game coming up in 2 weeks. Actually, coming up in 1 week. Next weekend is the championship game. What do you think is really the key takeaways for this? And does Southern Miss really have a shot of upending Troy in this game?
Yeah, I was thinking about this for a while because I know Southern Miss has played pretty good football in the last 4 weeks. They gave up play calling duty. Will Hall gave up his play calling duties, and the offense seems to be running a lot better as a result. But man, after that brutal game with Mississippi State, it's the end of a long season, a losing season under Will Hall. I don't see Southern Miss just rootin' tootin' at this game, I feel like Troy is going to sort of be a little bit more businesslike, just sort of get things put together. They don't want to come into the championship with a loss under their belt to Southern Miss. I don't feel like Southern Miss has much of a chance.
Yeah, I really think that this is kind of like that ULM Troy game, right? Yes, we know Troy's going to win. How much are they going to win by, and what happens? It wouldn't surprise me to see Troy kind of play down to the level of Southern Miss because we've seen before that they're capable of doing that again. But doing enough to get the win. You just got to hope everyone stays healthy so that we have a full Troy team ready to go for the Sunbelt Conference Championship next week. 1 o'clock on ESPN Plus. That Troy game, by the way, on ESPNU. So a little Nationals attention for that game. But on ESPN Plus, we have Georgia State at Old Dominion. You talk about a weird game. This is the weird bowl, the weird Super Bowl of the season. I can't help but pick Old Dominion because they're more weird than the Panthers, and have shown that they have just enough to go out to host the Panthers and to get that win going in there. Grant Wilson does his thing, throwing picks, throwing yards. Jason Henderson, double-digit tackles once again. And Ricky Ronnie gets to celebrate by looking forward to spring training baseball like only Ricky Ronnie could.
I don't see I don't see Georgia State getting up for this game either. So especially since the season has concluded the way it has. They've had some big games that they've just fallen short and been disappointed. Why would they get up for this game? Meanwhile, ODU, they have everything in the world to win this game. And, they especially to put a thumb in the eye of all their critics who thought, man, ODU is just going to have this terrible year. They've beaten teams like Louisiana. They've beaten teams like who else have they beaten, guys?
They beat Georgia Southern last week.
Yeah, they beat Georgia Southern. Yeah, I mean, it made Georgia Southern look kind of bad. I know that it was a last-second field goal, but that offense should be scoring more points than it scored. It's just, I don't know it's another story, what's going on with the Georgia teams. But I don't see ODU dropping the ball in this game. I see ODU just putting into another gear, getting to that bowl game, and then just sort of flipping off the rest of the conference.
Shane, Old Dominion, Georgia State. Who do you take in that in our second and short?
I take Old Dominion. I heard some of that conversation, even though I've been bouncing in and out of here. Yeah, they just have been, as we talk about them being weird, but in a weird way, they're more consistent than Georgia State, because Georgia State's just kind of tanked it the last few weeks. I just think ODU's in a better spot right now.
2:00, as they call it on the Sickos Committee, the Bowl Eligibility Bowl. Heads to Lafayette. Cajuns looking for win number 6 on the season to become bowl eligible. Warhawks playing for pride in my season bet of +3 on the year. This just smells of a typical ULM coming in and raining on everyone's parade. Blake Murphy back in at quarterback. Chandler Fields. We saw that the Cajuns were really kind of limping along last week when they went to Troy. I think they're still limping along. It will be a little bit of an emotional game. Not only is it being senior day for the Cajuns, but the final game in Cajun Field as we know it, as we've seen it, we love it, and so forth, before they start their new $50 million renovations as soon as the final whistle blows.
Yeah, this game it's going to mean more for Mike DeJormo, because he really. He's really straddling that line between Cajuns are back and a press release announcing for a new head coaching choice. It just when you think the Cajuns are back, then they're just not back. And I don't know what it's going to take for the Cajuns to get it through. I know that they've got the injury to the quarterback position. That's a big deal. Chandler Fields, though, is a good enough quarterback to get them through. Cajuns are a 13-point favorite in this game, Dusty. And I feel like ULM, at the very least, is going to beat that spread. And I've actually picked ULM to win this game outright.
I can see it happening. And, I mean, everybody in Harrisonburg is rooting for that to happening. Keep one less bowl-eligible team out there. But... yeah, I mean, it's one of those rivalries where it doesn't matter. It's a cliche. It doesn't matter what the records are. It doesn't matter anything else. Like both teams have a chance regardless of what's going on in that one.
Double dip of Sunbelt Conference action on ESPNU after the Troy Southern Miss game. We get Georgia Southern at App State. Georgia Southern needing to win to work their way into bowl eligibility. App State, they're there and fighting to improve their chances of getting into that Sunbelt Conference game to face Troy on the western side. It's a sold-out game already at the Rock and Boone. Joey Aguilar one last dance, or retiring the number for Amani Edwards. There's no way the Nears lose this game with everything going on around it. Sean Clark looked. He just rolled out of bed for the Sunbelt Conference Media Day availability on the video. I can't pick against the guy. I like the Nears. I like Sean Clark. I like Joey Aguilar and the Nears to win the East.
Yeah. And here's the thing with that. So Coastal Carolina has the tie break on Appalachian State. So Appalachian State really has to win this game. So they've got every reason to beat Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern, we were talking about this earlier, guys. There's something going on with the Georgia Sunbelt teams. Georgia State, since reaching 6 wins, winless. Georgia Southern, since winning 6 wins, winless. I mean, that's kind of crazy that it would happen to both the Georgia teams. And both these teams, before they started hitting these losing streaks, they looked unstoppable. But yeah, I agree with Tibbs. There's no way Appalachian State loses this game. They can't. I mean, if they were to lose this game, Boone would implode in of itself. It'd be a tiny little golf ball sized piece of antimatter. That's what would happen if Appalachian State loses this game, and it's just not going to happen.
You guys are looking at this the wrong way. Oh. This is the mirror image of what Appalachian State was in on last week, with the town going wild, so much to play for, a big rival coming in wanting to play spoiler. App State's on the other side of this now, but it doesn't matter. They're too good. They're going to beat Georgia Southern.
Yeah, well, Shane, what has happened in Georgia Southern? Do you know?
No, I don't. I mean, I think they're an above average team that's sort of gotten to where they have average to above average results at this point. Maybe it's just the only explanation for it.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of on the defensive side. Although, offensively, they haven't been throwing lights out either. So it's just kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that Georgia State and Georgia Southern have really dropped the ball these last 4 weeks.
Then we get to go back onto the ESPN Plus platform.
Okay.
The Arkansas State Red Wolves head to Huntington, West Virginia to face Marshall. Arkansas State, I think right now, is probably the hottest team in the Sun Belt Conference. And I think they stay hot at this game because Marshall's just too beat up to really compete right now. It's been a great run there, Coach Huff. But Butch Jones is rolling on to win number 7 on the season.
Yeah, Arkansas State really is sort of feeling it right now. The team is actually pretty healthy. Last year at this time, Arkansas State was down to scrubs simply because all their starters were banged up and hurt. They're healthy at this point, which is kind of incredible for any football team. And Marshall's not. Marshall's hurt. They're limping. They've got some issues at quarterback right now. They just got shut out by a South Alabama team that, has great defense. I'll give them that. But, man, you got to put up some points, right? I mean, especially when you're Marshall and you still have Ali running the ball for you. I'm not sure how that happens. I think the Thundering Herd are an early 2.5-point favorite in this, but I don't see them covering that at all.
On the Deuce, ESPN2, James Madison travels to the Teal Field to close out the season at Coastal Carolina. James Madison kind of got maybe a little too high last week. That was part of the reason that they were unable to really excel in that game against the Mountaineers. I think they rebound this week, showcase why they are the Eastern Sun Belt Conference champions, but still unable to represent the division in the Sun Belt Conference Championship. It's all Dukes all the time, beating the Shawns.
If you saw Kurt Cignetti's press conference yesterday, where he obviously had gotten some of the news of what was happening behind the scenes before it was completely out there, and you hadn't seen him like that all season. I'm sure he's going to probably channel that
The JMU alum and the Illuminati are just pissed at Shane. His connection in his cave hideout has not been very strong. So we apologize for that.
It's uncharacteristic.
There's just no Metlin this week. The satellite phone is not very strong. I don't know if it's the solar flares or what. But Jeremy, as you were saying, James Madison, Coastal Carolina, I think it's the Dukes that just kind of roll in the game and really kind of come back down. They came back down to earth last week against App State, and they're now able to really showcase that they are really the best team talent-wise in the Sun Belt Conference and able to showcase that against what everyone has seen previously as the best team with the Chants. But I think the Chants' days are behind them.
Yeah, the Chanticleers, they're coming into this game with a shot, a good shot at winning the East, right? All they have to do is win this game. They win this game, they have the East. It was the same way last time when they played JMU, and they lost 47-7. And now here we got a JMU that's bitter about being, unavailable for a bowl game, being made unavailable for a championship game, playing one of maybe the best group of 5 seasons that we've seen in a long time. And they're going to take it out on Coastal Carolina, who they don't really like that much. So, I felt like losing to Army probably didn't do much for Coastal Carolina's confidence. Going up against James Madison, even though Coastal Carolina will be at home, that's a tall order. I don't think Kurt Signetti is going to allow this game to be even close against Coastal Carolina.
The finale. How fitting is it?
On the NFL Network.
All comes down to this. On the NFL Network. South Alabama heads to the river in San Marcos to face the Viva La Boobcats. Boobcats at 6 wins. South Alabama needing the win. I don't think that Texas State can get that 7th win.
Ooh.
I think that the Jaguars are surging. They have shown that they have finally found themselves and that they are really living up to the hype that we thought that they would have coming into this season. And they're going to showcase that this week on the NFL Network, beating the Bobcats.
Everything you've said about South Alabama is absolutely true. But there's one thing that gives me pause before I say, South Alabama's going to win this game. And it's at San Marcos. You got G.J. Kenny coming in with that, new team, new guy, brought in a lot of energy. A lot of people believe in Kenny now. A lot of people believe what's going on with the Bobcats. I feel like with this game, in front of that home crowd, the Bobcats, and on the NFL Network, which is a nationally syndicated network, I guess, or more so than ESPN Plus, I guess. I think G.J. Kenny is going to really want to show out his team, especially coming off of that 7-31 loss. I really do feel like the Bobcats have a great chance at coming away with a victory on this game. I know that USA right now is just the better team, but I don't know if I'm counting out the Bobcats on that. In fact, if you looked at my Bet Online bet sheet, you would know that I'm not convinced that USA is going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, South Alabama just cruised last week, right?
Yeah.
They're looking amazing, which means they won't this week, right? Isn't that how it goes? Like with South Alabama? That's my analysis.
I thought you had, wow. I thought there was going to be so much more. and that is the end of Second and Short for the 2023 season.
The Gong loves you, Thibodeau. It's time that you start loving the Gong.
I'm glad you said Gong. So, with Thanksgiving coming up, guys, and we have our plugs, promos, and parting shots, I guess we should also add in there, what are we thankful for this upcoming week?
Oh.
as we reflect back on the year of 2023. Shane, we'll give it to you while the satellite phone is still connected.
Thankful certainly for my family, for all all the fine people I've gotten to meet, like especially this year, it seems like I've met more and more people as more and more people start following JMU sports, and the huge crowd for game day. It seemed like everybody was coming up to say hi, and I really appreciated that. And those are the things I'm most thankful for. Thankful for the Fun Belt and Fun Belt football and basketball and every other sport that we get to cover. It's been a blast.
Did they say that they enjoyed listening to the show?
One person did.
That's 100% more than I thought.
Yeah. What do you have for us?
We do this every year. We sit around the table and we're forced to say things we're thankful for. It's like one of those things where as it gets closer and closer to you, you're like, come on, think of something. I am thankful. In Sunbelt terms, I am thankful that the Sunbelt has become an interesting sports league. And not just by, like a couple teams like making waves. Just every week has been storyline after storyline. And that has been awesome. And it's coming down to basketball. We did talk earlier about how basketball's kind of dropping the ball a little bit and that they need to pick it up. But for all parts, the Sun Belt has become a very interesting conference to cover. I don't feel alone anymore in my efforts to cover Arkansas State and the Sun Belt. I feel like there's this growing community of those willing to put their talent and their professional abilities to covering the Sun Belt, and I'm grateful for all you guys. But there's also one small group of people that I'm eternally grateful for, at least appreciative of, and that is the beat writer, newspaper man, who every Friday night goes out to these small towns all over the United States covering high school football. Man, you guys are the true warriors. I love you guys. The next morning you get up and you cover the whatever college team you're assigned to. But man, that's yeoman's work. Going out into the woods, finding some football stadium, and covering some high school games. I love it.
Thankful, definitely for you guys. It's been a trying year for me with the job change.
Yeah,
making sure that we kept the show going and everything in between. So definitely thankful for y'all. Thankful for our 6 listeners that we have, including the one that Shane found. And just looking forward to a great 2024 season covering basketball. Hopefully getting us all together, finally one room. Yes, as crazy as it sounds, as many shows as we've cranked out. Yes, I've met Jeremy several times, but I have never met Shane. So we need to fix that in 2024.
I had a seat with your name on it next to me in Atlanta. Literally did, and it didn't work.
Yeah,
it's not meant to be. Yeah.
It's not meant to be.
You guys, your ships are to never cross in the night. So
yeah.
Until the next episode.